Oh, you can hear me. Okay. See, that's always, I always hold my breath until someone says they can actually hear me. Okay, good. Haven't quite figured the lighting out in my office. Yeah, I think that's a little too bright. I don't need, well, maybe.
No, that doesn't look bad.
Okay, I'll leave it on like that. All right.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
How you doing, Chris?
Hey, John.
Do you think Lily would be possible? You think she'll be in there? One second. She will.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Dave. Hey, Chris.
Hey, John. How are you?
Pretty good. Like back in the office full time now, so it's a little better.
Dave Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is Dave Newton. I'm here.
We can hear you. Good, Dave.
Good. I was having some problems getting my audio going.
Yeah, you're not appearing on video, but we can hear you just fine. So.
Okay. Huh. Oh, well. You don't want to see me anyway.
I saw you Saturday, Dave.
My beard is bushier than both of yours, so.
That's okay. Hey, Pete.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good, thanks. Hey, John.
Hey, Pete.
How are you, Peter?
Good, Chris, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Chris, is your team all on? I think so, but you guys are first up. Do you think everybody's on? I see Mike, I see John, I see Richard.
The only one I don't know if they're here is Greg Nucci. Mike, is Greg joining us?
I believe so. I'm not positive though.
I'm not actually sure I invited Greg because I didn't anticipate him talking from the architectural perspective, but if he is, I can send him an invite right now.
Yeah, if you could, Dave, just in case.
Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, I see. Well, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So Dave, I think we have everybody except Tom Paul.
Bob.
Oh, Bob, that's right. Well, wait.
I thought Bob was he's going to try to make it. He said he could probably only attend until about 8 o'clock, but I thought he would be here for the opening.
Right. Okay, well, we can wait like 40 seconds. We have a lot on our agenda tonight.
You do.
And Kayla, before you get started, we do have a lot of people on as panelists. So I think what I'd ask people to do is if you're not talking, if you could please put yourself on mute. And then I'd also ask if you're not participating in this first agenda item, if you could turn your video off, that might be a little helpful for everybody just to organize. So everybody mute if you're not talking, and just the folks that aren't part of this first agenda item. You can get off video and then jump on when we get to your agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Well, hopefully Bob will be here soon. So I would like to open our Inland Wetlands meeting of March 1st, 2021 at, I've got 7:02 p.m. And our first item for tonight is a public hearing for application 21-03 856 Boston Post Road. I don't know. So we've had the applicant present. I guess we could have a quick, another update and then I know there's a lot of people probably who want to speak. Dave, what do you think? Is that a good way to go?
Yeah,
Do
so
a
I think
recap?
so that the presentation from the last meeting was just to accept the application for review. So I'd suggest that I think Attorney McKeon had some opening comments, and then he was going to turn it over to Mike to kind of dive into a little bit of a presentation. Because I think for the benefit of the public that are in attendance, they'd probably benefit from a little bit of an overview.
Okay, that sounds great.
We have to open the public hearing.
Right, and typically the applicant does the presentation first, and then if the agency has questions, they'll ask those questions, and then we'll get to a point where we open up the public hearing to allow the public to ask questions.
Yeah, but you have to vote to open the public hearing, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Have a discussion first.
We're gonna have the applicant present first, and then we can ask questions, and then we can vote to open up the public hearing. Right?
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Taylor, you're correct.
All right. So I'll let the applicant and everyone associated with the applicant go ahead and start.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris McKeon. I am the attorney for the applicant. And we have with us tonight our project and site engineer, Mike Ott, our landscape design, our landscape architect, John Cunningham. I believe our project architect, Greg Nucci, may be joining if he isn't in the participants, but he is the project architect. And our application was received on February 8th. At that time, we were aware of one specific wetland area to the south west of the site, not located on the applicant's site, but the on a parcel to the southwest. And we briefly discussed the very minimal activity that would be going on within the review area. In connection with the application, there was some letters directed to the agency, one of which was from a neighboring property indicating that there may be wetlands to the southeast of the applicant's parcel. Since that time, a couple of things have happened. One is we reached out to that property owner seeking permission to go and, inspect and locate and flag any wetlands that were there. And also the site walk, which occurred this past weekend, it appears there was a soil scientist or wetland scientist who had indicated to Mr. Ott that there may be an area of wetlands that he flagged. So what we would like to do tonight is to open the public hearing, present our plans with respect to the wetland that we know and have flagged, that one being to the southwest of the site. And we also have with us, in addition to Mike Ott, who will discuss the activities that would be occurring within the review area. We also have with us Rick Hosley, who his background is in geology. He's also with the company that would be overseeing rock removal, any blasting. He's very knowledgeable. I forwarded Dave Anderson his resume. And when we open the public hearing and Rick speaks, I'd like that to be part of the record, if that's okay, Dave. I think you received it.
Yes, I did, Chris.
And then what we'd like to do then would be to continue the public hearing, not close it, so that we can look further into this other area if in fact another soil scientist has located and flagged wetlands. That's the information we're looking for and have been looking for, so we can include whatever measures are necessary to ensure that there isn't any significant impact on another area of wetlands. And again, Mr. Ott and Mr. Hosley can speak to both of those issues, but tonight we wanted to have the public hearing and focus on what we already know and have addressed. And again, request the agency's permission to keep the hearing open and come back in the April meeting to address the information we've gained since we've filed the application as to this additional well on the southeast of the property.
Okay, that sounds great. So, but I think before we open the hearing, Mike and maybe Rick can both talk, and that'll give everyone the background and information, and then we can open up the hearing.
I think our presentation needs to be part of the public hearing. If somebody is to not agree with the decision of the agency, I think the entire presentation needs to be part of the record. I know that
once Attorney McKeon started speaking, it was open.
Yeah, in the past, we've always voted to open the hearing.
Ah.
I think the chair can open the public hearing because it's been duly noticed. We've sent the required mailings to the abutters pursuant to the regulations, and everybody is here based on a duly noticed public hearing. So
Chris, I agree with what you're saying. That's how we do it with all the other boards and commissions. So if this commission's done it differently, if you want to take a vote, you're welcome to, but you know, the public hearing's open.
okay,
Yeah, I think what happens
fine with
is
me.
we vote to close it, and of course we won't do that tonight. So
without further ado, I'll turn it over to the folks you want to hear from instead of me, and I'll let Mike go from here.
Okay, so I'm just for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summer Hill Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors in Madison. I will share my screen if I can and give the agency as brief an overview as I can. Okay. So is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll do this the same way I did it on the site walk on Saturday, I think. So the Boston Post Road on the left-hand side of the sheet, if you can see my cursor, Birnbaum Lane, adjacent to the Boston Post Road travelway. I think we spoke about this in the field, the existing driveway that serves the Ledges home on the property today will be widened to an 18-foot width. There will be, the thing circling is building number 1, the gatehouse building down in the lawn area. If you remember, also in the lawn area are all the leaching fields, which are, I don't know how well these colors show up, but I had to color them to kind of keep track of them and the piping that comes into them. So there will be under the proposal a total of 7 residential units, and all 7 leaching fields that serve those units are down in this front lawn. There will be a little bit of rock removal to construct this first residence. There will be some rock removal. Some of what I'm telling you, of course, is not directly related to wetlands, but I'll just do this as quick as I can, like I did on Saturday. There'll be a little bit of rock removal here to change the profile of the driveway. And as you come up into the major portion of the site, if you recall, the estate house will be renovated and divided into 2 residential units. 2 new garage structures will be constructed. About 320 square feet, which I don't think I told you this on Saturday, but about 320 square feet will come off the east end of the estate house. As you saw on Saturday, there is a circular driveway here today. We will reconfigure it to allow for the parking that we've shown here and here and here. And it's been, the geometry of this is such that the town's fire apparatus can get up here and turn around. So in addition to the new building 1 and the renovation of the estate house and the 2 garages, there will be 2 carriage house buildings constructed, 2 residential units in them. This is the first carriage house building and the second carriage house. The existing apartment building, if you recall, is to be removed. In the rear, the only components of the septic systems that serve the 2 new carriage buildings, 4 units total, are the septic tanks, excuse me, and the pump chambers. I'll zoom in a little bit. This is a typical septic tank and a typical wastewater effluent pump chamber. The wastewater effluent will be pumped up, as you recall, up to the east side of the house, of the existing estate house, to a distribution vault, and from here will go down the hill, down the slope to the leaching fields by gravity. Septic tanks for the estate house are in the front, in the lawn, and the septic tank for the building number 1 is in the lawn also. No pump chamber is required. So in the rear, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 septic tanks and 4 wastewater effluent pump chambers. We are, as I explained on Saturday, we are not changing surface water drainage patterns. We are, if you recall, I had explained that we are removing the apartment building and replacing it with gardens and seating in this kind of appendage to the parcel. And we're also, if you recall, I had said we were removing pavement in front of the apartment building. So this light purple area shaded, hopefully you can see that as purple, is the total area of impervious surface that will be removed. And it is approximately 3,900 square feet. So the building goes away and gets replaced by gardens and seating. The pavement goes away and gets replaced by lawn. We're actually reducing the pavement, the total pavement area by a little over 100 square feet. But as I explained on Saturday on the walk, we are increasing the building roof area, of course, because we are constructing these 2 new units and these 2 garages. Let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit. So hopefully you can see this heavier purple dashed line that I'm tracing. This is the catchment area that will be directed to the subsurface infiltration system that we spoke about on Saturday. So this subsurface infiltration system accepts stormwater runoff from all of the pavement area of the driveway and the lawn areas that are within this catchment area also. They drain to an inlet here where my cursor is, and that water gets directed via a pipe to a subsurface infiltration system. It's sized to handle the water quality volume from this purple outlined catchment area. Although it's not required to treat this particular types of building roofs for water quality, we are going to infiltrate the first inch of runoff from the two new garages, and the two new carriage house buildings within the existing island area. We've done test pits back here, and there is 8 or more feet of depth of soil in the existing island area within the driveway today. So to get to, I think what you're concerned about with regard to the wetland off-site, and I apologize, bear with me 1 second. Oops. So as we talked about in the field, there is an inland wetland located at the southwest corner of what used to be the applicant's property. And this wetland was delineated, I believe, in 2007 or 2008. It's shown on the record survey that's filed in the land records in the town hall. This blue line is the 100-foot upland review area arc from this inland wetland, this offsite inland wetland. If you remember, we all stood up. If I zoom in a little bit, we stood up here on top of the ledge and looked down at this wetland. This is where the two stone masonry posts were at the gate at the corner. So the activity within the 100-foot upland review area is comprised of removal of rock along the southern elevation of this new building, along the southern side that I'm tracing, and along the western side, simply to be able to construct the building. We are not, as I said in the field on Saturday, we're not changing surface water drainage patterns. We're not introducing any new impervious surface area stormwater runoff to this wetland. We are simply cutting down, excavating down approximately on a line that I'm tracing with my cursor into the rock to be able to construct this building. And if you remember, I had said in the field, we need to go back into the rock behind the back of this house 10 to 20 feet in order for room to work and practically to be able to construct the house. That area will get backfilled again, and the area will be restored. There is sediment control barrier shown along the back property line here. It stops here in case you're wondering, because this is a ridge and runoff can't get up over that ridge and get to the wetlands. So that's why that barrier stops there. And that's really the extent of the activity within the 100-foot upland review area. I'll talk about this other area in a second, but maybe I should stop here to see if the commission or the agency has any questions.
I think that's pretty much what we heard last month and what we saw Saturday. So why don't we move to the other potential place? Okay.
So as Attorney McKeon said, when we were out in the field on the walk on Saturday, George Logan, a soil and wetland scientist, was present at the walk, and he indicated that he was working for at least one adjoining property owner, I think, and that he had delineated an inland wetland on this adjoining property. And we all walked down, as you recall, and took a look, and we saw his flags. And I pasted off. It's certainly the inland wetland is our activities on removing this building and creating the garden and seating area are certainly within 100 feet of that inland wetland. But we, of course, we do not have it mapped as it just came up on Saturday. It's my opinion that even though there is an inland wetland present here, that our project does not have the potential to adversely impact it. And I'll just very quickly say it again. We are removing this building and replacing it with gardens and seating, and we're removing this pavement and replacing it with lawn. And unlike today, where this driveway pavement drains ultimately in this direction, we are actually capturing the water quality volume and providing treatment for stormwater quality through the subsurface infiltration system. So I do not believe, it's my opinion, that this project does not present a potential adverse impact to this inland wetland. I think that's as quick an overview as I can do. And unless anyone has any questions, I think it'd be great for you all to hear from Rick Hosley.
I have a question. Saturday, you said that there's on the plans where the garage is going to be removed. It's addressing the fact that while it's being removed, parts of the building as it's taken apart won't go into the wetlands. Was that siltation defense?
Yes, I will. Let me zoom in a little bit. See the dashed line?
Yes.
That is sediment control barrier. It is it's called out on the plans, and there's a detail on the plans. It is geotech style silt fence, backed up by staked straw bales.
Thank you.
I have a question, Kia. This is Joe. Now, on Saturday, I don't remember those two detached garages being talked about. I may have missed it. Mike, if those two detached garages weren't on the plan and they weren't a proposal, would building number 2 be able to go to the north and not embedded into the ledge?
This building, you mean?
Yes.
Joe? No, because if you recall, there's a set of stairs here to go up to the first level terrace, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
So the edge of the pavement is right up against those stairs.
Okay.
So no, unfortunately.
Okay. I didn't know if the stairs were proposed also.
Yes, they are. Actually, let me zoom in. I'll show you. This might be a little bit hard to see, and I don't think I talked about it, but see the stairs?
So those exist or are proposed?
They exist, and they're going to be reconstructed.
Okay.
I think we may have some photographs, but they definitely exist. I'm sure some of the members must have seen them out there.
I just wanted to put on record that those two garages weren't the reason building 2 is farther south.
Okay. Any other questions before we hear from the next person? Okay.
So Rick, I can leave that. Would you like me to leave that drawing up for you?
At this point, Mike, we can call it back up if necessary. My name is Rick Hosley. I'm a geologist, explosives engineer. I've got some photographs I'd like to share with you just to talk about the scenery a little bit and explain or answer any questions you might have from my opinion in terms of the geology, the geologic structure, and what is present on site. My company is Realty Securities. It's related to Hosley Companies. We are a 98-year-old company of explosives engineering. You're familiar with the site of the ledges. And what's exciting about this site is the history and the fact that there's evidence on site that much of the property was built or sustained by the rock that is on site. And I think that may go back to prior to what we see present. In other words, it may have been quarried from other structures on site. Underneath the foundation of the ledges is a rock called the Waterford Group. It's a gneiss, G-N-E-I-S-S rock type, granitic gneiss, very common along the shore. We see it along the Boston Post Road, south of the Boston Post Road, and even north a bit at the golf course and Lantern Hill. A little bit about me. I'm president of the Hosley Companies. I'm the technical director for the European Federation of Explosives Engineers and the past vice president for the International Society of Explosive Engineers, which is based in Cleveland, Ohio. This photograph is looking down into the wetlands, basically down into the water course from a higher elevation. And my purpose in this photo is just to talk about a little bit about the topography. Essentially, that hollow or that downgrade is a syncline. Anticlines and synclines are rolling hills that are the result of compression from the formation of metamorphic rock. This is a metamorphic gneiss, again, called the Waterford Group. Syncline is easy to remember because that's down or it's a hollow. So when you syn, you go down, anticline, it comes up. A little easier way to remember that. This is another example of where the tennis court is, the syncline symbol, which is at the bottom of that slope. Top of the slope is the top of the hill. My illustration on the right is how that metamorphic rock is squeezed. And you have these knolls and hollows of repetition. We know that this exists here because of not only the topography, but also because there were some test borings that were dug or some test holes closer to the ledges residence in between the rock outcrop and the ledges. And there they found, I believe, 10 feet of dirt, 8 feet of dirt before they hit solid ledge. So when we think about this wetlands, we think about the discharge area and we think about the confining bed, which is called an aquiclude. That's basically a non-permeable rock layer, the formation that sort of holds that water in that syncline or in that little valley. This is at the bottom of the syncline adjacent to the tennis court looking upward. You could imagine that water sheds from both sides of this syncline from the peaks, which are the anticline. Again, the tennis courts, just to sort of get your bearing, a little easier to review with a sunny day rather than a rainy day. Let me see here. Again, another view looking up the hill toward the ledges property. We're looking north in this direction. Here we've come to the top of the hill where the ledges are located, the actual rock cut and face. And this is where there's evidence that there was some prospecting or dimensional stone production for what I believe are the stone walls and structures on site. The stone wall that you see in the background represents the westerly property line, again, looking north. Looking into the ledges that we were talking about earlier that I believe Mike mentioned that he was standing on. What is prominent in these ledges or in this rock face is this cleavage or these plains that were a successful point of relief for past dimensional stone rock producers. In other words, they would use this cleavage, which may equate to a lineage of north to south in the crystal alignment when this geologic unit cooled. With that crystal alignment, you have a point at which you can cleave the rock. This is significant in the sense that during rock removal, whether hammering is required or blasting is implemented with the use of confinement of expanding gases, these pre-existing cracks or the direction of north-south or this lineation dictates essentially how the rock breaks off and what the fragmentation size will be. This is a fine example of what we saw out in the field relative to some of the dimensional stone retrieval that we believe took place here. This is another spot toward the bottom of that syncline outside of the tennis courts. As you can see in the background, we have the tennis courts. And I wanted to draw attention to this little stone wall, which is sitting on top of the ledge. With a closer look at it, you can see this lineage. These are essentially alignments or cooling joints that formed, that we call geologic structure, that is associated with metamorphic rock found in this area, the Waterford Group. If you note that this lineage falls at a angle of about 33 degrees. Why is this significant? Well, as you remove this ledge, as you migrate rock removal toward the tennis courts or toward that syncline, you will be cleaving the rock at this angle. So the resultant rock face running east-west will be at 33 degrees. And in the previous photographs that we showed, the rock ledge will be north-south in lineage, but fairly straight up and down, almost 90 degrees. Here's another example beyond that same photograph you were looking at, only over to the left. A natural crack has broken this way. Why is this significant? Well, if the rock to the right is removed, the rock to the left remains a solid, non-impermeable rock mass that will not allow the water to migrate through it. And I think this is significant in terms of not only sheet flow from the surface, but from the excavation if a foundation is put in within that 100-foot or beyond that 100-foot upland designation. These are some photos of the front of the ledges. Michael mentioned that a portion of the front eastern section of the existing house will be removed. Right below that, you can also see another prospect. Again, this supports those northwest lineations or cooling joints that we've seen in the back. This was cleaved out, again, I would assume for dimensional stone production, and it allows for the placement of what Michael described earlier, which was his septic system trenches and distribution box, that sort of thing. My point is that the geology lends itself to the direction that he has created or designed these trenches and underground utilities. This is another off-site point that I'd just like to bring to folks that are concerned about damage to rock outside of the construction removal. This is an example of basalt, which is highly fractured and intensely full of geologic structure, lots of cracks. What I'd like to point out in this photograph is that the blast design or the rock removal design was such that the half rounds of the drill holes remain, which are pointed out, evidence that only the rock that needs to be broken can be broken if the blast design is prepared properly. Here are some others. This is a project in Stony Creek, Connecticut, that recently took place where rock removal and blasting occurred within 15 feet of an existing structure. These are very high-end structures right on the water in Stony Creek. A closer look at this describes some of the horizontal bedding or pre-existing cracks in the rock. And then to the left of the screen, you see some of the decomposed geology that occurs in various locations as you migrate through a geologic unit, depending on how it was formed. So, and then finally, one of my favorites, this is in Norwich, Connecticut. This is where rock removal along Route 2 was designed to protect the structure behind it, a pre-existing church. And there are multiple methods of cushion blasting or sensitive blasting or low detonation velocity blasting that will help preserve this. And I'm recommending to the applicant that this be evaluated as we encroach on the wetlands, depending on where that wetland delineation is, and depending on how much room or rock excavation should occur behind the proposed buildings. And with that, I apologize for being passionate about my work.
I think it was very good.
That's great. So for the commission members, agency members, any questions for Mr. Hosley?
No questions.
One little question, Kia. That Stony Creek picture, how loud would you say that was to like the neighbors? That blasting.
So the interesting thing about this project is, and one of the most important parts of any project, construction project, is to involve the community. There has to be public relations, notifications of the work to take place, conversations about concerns, addressing to the community historical evidence that, say, a new construction project may not have. Once that took place, concerns about the construction of adjacent structures, whether there was horsehair plaster in the adjacent construction materials, whether there were sensitive ground motion construction items or photographs on walls or vases, or all of this attention to detail occurs long before any of the rock excavation. Therefore, opening a point of conversation so that people can talk about what their concerns are. Once this starts, blasting or any rock removal always starts from the furthest point of the greatest concern. And with that, seismographs are placed to document ground motion, the time at which any rock excavation occurs, and also noise levels. And those are subject to state, local, and federal regulations. But the concern isn't necessarily the insurance companies or state and federal regulations. It's the ability to maintain the public relations and demonstrate that this work can be done successfully. So the long and short of your question is there's a lot vested to accomplish these sorts of things. And it starts with what we're doing now, having a public meeting, talking about matters of fact and bringing in opinion so that we can design a project with such a way that it fits in with the community and doesn't affect adjacent historic structures. That was a mouthful.
All right,
Any
thank
other
you.
questions?
Yeah, any other questions? Okay. Well, I think that was all that we were expecting to hear from the applicant, right? Okay.
With reiterating my earlier request that we would like to keep the public hearing open until next month so we can gather the additional information and bring our same group back to address the area of wetlands that you all saw on Saturday that had been flagged on the adjacent property.
Right. Yes, definitely, because we also are going to want to hear more about that since this isn't going to be fully complete. All right. So I imagine given some of the letters, that we have a number of people who would like to speak. Is that right, Dave
And we
Anderson?
have approximately 32 attendees on right now. Some of them are for later agenda items, but there are a number of people here for this agenda item.
Okay. What I would like to just say is that this is inland wetlands. It is not planning and zoning. I know I've read through the correspondence that people have submitted, and there are a lot of opinions about this type of development in this area, and that isn't what we are in charge of. So if possible, it would be great if, as people speak, they can really reference their concerns with respect to the wetlands themselves, because that's really all that we can talk about with respect to the application. So Dave, I'll let you handle people who want to come in and speak.
Yeah, so for folks that are attendees on the meeting, if you could raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, and I'll kind of unmute you sequentially as you raise your hand. All right, so we'll start with Steve Bischoff. Steve, you may need to unmute yourself.
Yep.
There you go.
Back to my wife, Jane. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I have a question with regard to the runoff. That was mentioned that there was an infiltration system if there is an inch of runoff. And I apologize, I'm not an expert on this, but what happens if there is more than 1 inch of water, especially since Mr. Ott had mentioned that they are increasing the roof area of the property? I understand in the back, the hardscaping might be lower in percentage. You are increasing the hardscaping in the front, and you don't mention the runoff from that. And what happens in the back if the water is greater than 1 inch? I was wondering if you could comment on that. Oh, and one other thing. I had a question also about blasting chemicals that might leach into the wetlands. So maybe we could look at those two things.
Thank you.
So I don't know, Mike, do you want to answer the question with respect to having more than 1 inch of runoff and how that will affect the detention, the stormwater detention?
Yes, so I mean, I can answer the inland wetland related questions. What I meant by, so the standard of practice regarding water quality for runoff from impervious surfaces, pavements in this case, is to capture and treat the water quality volume, which unless your drainage area or catchment area, the area that rain falls on, is completely paved or completely impervious, is less than 1 inch. So the water quality volume is the runoff that occurs from the first inch of rainfall. So we have met that standard. Actually, what we've done is the subsurface stormwater infiltration system actually has the capacity to store a full inch, so more than the water quality volume. So that's what I meant when I spoke about the water quality volume in the rear of the site. I didn't talk about the front of the site because this is the Wetland Commission and there's no inland wetlands there, but I can tell you just really briefly that the driveway, if you look at the drawings, you'll see that the driveway is proposed to be constructed so that it's cross-sloped away from the neighbors and towards the lawn. So runoff from the driveway and the sidewalk, that's going to be along the driveway, will go out into the lawn area and infiltrate. The lawn is relatively flat, and that manner of infiltration is also a way to treat stormwater runoff. There is no, today, as in the rear, again, if we go back to the rear, actually anywhere on the property, stormwater, well, in the rear especially, stormwater runoff drains to the southeast, as we spoke about, towards the, towards the apartment building and towards that inland wetland that has been flagged. The town of Madison does not have a requirement to reduce the peak rates of discharge for stormwater runoff. So we have, and in this particular case, the catchment area is very small. It's only 13,000 square feet, round numbers. When it rains, when we have a rainfall event that's greater than an inch in depth, the runoff will go just as it does today. When we have a rainfall depth that's greater than an inch in depth, it will go in the same direction to the same places that it goes today. We're not, again, like I said earlier, we have not changed surface water drainage patterns. We've simply addressed water quality, which is would be the standard of practice for this type of development.
Okay, so thank you, Mike. Mr. Hosley, can you answer the question about chemicals?
Most certainly. Rick, please. Mr. Hosley's my dad. I think you brought up a fantastic question, and it reminds me of a situation we had 25 years ago with the European Federation of Explosives Engineers, and that is the governments had demilitarized a product that had perchlorates in it. Perchlorate is what is in bleach. And it was determined that by using these demilitarized explosives for rock blasting, of course, you can imagine mineral production around the world. The fact that there's 110 minerals in the computer we're using right now, and mining and the use of explosives is the primary source for producing those minerals. It's very important that we do not use explosives that leach chemicals into the ground. Perchlorates are forbidden, although they are still used in laundry constantly, and perchlorates do not disappear. They remain in the aquifer, remain in our environment. It's something of concern, certainly. 99% of all the explosives used today in the world now, as regulated, are ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate is a fertilizer. Fertilizer is hygroscopic, it dissolves, and when you put it on your lawn, it enters the soil and fertilizes your grass and helps things grow. Back to your point, when explosives detonate, they essentially turn solids into gas in a chemical reaction. The outcome of that gas is carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, steam, nitrogen dioxide, and nitrogen monoxide. Those are primarily the off gases that occur with the detonation of explosives. My point is it's aromatic as opposed to solid or something that would enter the earth or the atmosphere. Is it the best choice for rock removal using an explosives that enters gases into the air? Well, until we come up with a better method, it seems to be the most cost-effective in terms of addressing rock fragmentation. But if the detonation is performed properly, legally, it will not leave any residue whatsoever. Does that answer your question?
Sure did.
Okay, so thank you, Rick. All right, are there more people who would like to ask questions?
If there are, please again, raise your hand and we can unmute you. Yeah, we have a couple more takers here. All right, first up is Keith Ainsworth.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Ainsworth. I'm an environmental attorney in private practice in New Haven, currently located in Madison during the pandemic. I currently represent several of the neighbors, Mr. Bischoff and the Downs and Jane Zenario. And I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. With regard to the rock removal, what is the plan for the rock removal? How long does that operation go on? And what's the square area of rock that is actually being removed from the site? Because one of the concerns I would have is how long does that rock stay on the site and is exposed to the elements? And then I'd like to ask, Mr. Hosley, were you present on the site before Saturday? I noticed that your photos were taken on a sunny day. Saturday was pretty rainy. And did you take any soil borings then? And did you have permission to be on the Gagnon and Downs properties when you were there?
Oh, that's a very important question. I'm glad you brought that up, Keith. And I talked to Faith about that the day I arrived. I had a tour on site with Faith and Whitehead and Mike a lot. And when I had left that day, I felt that I had not fulfilled my requirements for understanding the matters of fact on this site. So I went back to the site and took those photos while we had a nice day. It was late in the afternoon. The fact of the matter was I followed the stone wall from the Ledges property, headed over the anticline into the syncline, and noticed the two posts at the far end of the property, which I assumed were still part of the Ledges property. Point of the matter, and to answer your question honestly, Keith, I crossed over the property line and I did take photographs from the neighbor's adjoining property. Was there a second part to that question?
Well, there were a number of questions I had regarding the rock removal and how much square area was to be removed, and how long the rock stays on site before it's removed from the site.
Those are questions that I have not investigated myself personally. I have not looked into that. I can say that this particular geology, to the best of my knowledge, in my opinion, does not represent a rock when fractured that produces, for example, acid rock drainage or some sort of off silt that would contaminate or endanger the wetlands if the silt structures are in place. Michael, do you want to head toward that rock quantity or volume, or is that something that we need to investigate further?
Sure. Well, we know, I can say that we know approximately, just bear with me 1 second. We know that in the southwest corner where I described where the carriage house building 2, I think it's called, will be constructed, that we're going to need to remove a section of rock approximately 30 feet in width and 80 feet in length, along the parallel roughly to the southern property line, the rear property line, and then another section that varies in width between 5 and 20 feet and about 40 feet in length, approximately parallel to the western property line. So that's our estimate of the area of rock that will be removed.
Fair enough. I guess we could maybe ask if you could at some point determine what the volume would be as well.
We can.
Thank you. And I guess I'll leave the remainder for, I guess, the next meeting, because we have some new wetlands that have been identified. And, obviously we'll have to talk about what happens to those. So I'll leave that for the next meeting. And I do have here George Logan, who actually was the gentleman who actually did the wetlands flagging on behalf of my clients. And he might be able to comment about what he observed in the field.
It's up to the commission. I can be very brief. George Logan, for the record, REMA Ecological Services. I'm a registered soil scientist. I'm also a professional wetland scientist and a certified senior ecologist. So yeah, I was asked to take a look and see if there was a wetland in that back portion of the Gagnon property, and indeed there is one, and it's quite obvious, at least in the center of it. Because it looks like you have some seasonally flooded areas. And then I think we saw when we were out there, there's a couple of people that went out and took a look, including one of your commissioners. And it comes up the slope towards the tennis court. It doesn't reach the tennis court. You saw those flags. The soils there are poorly drained. I did not see any very poorly drained soils in there. One thing that was kind of a little puzzling to me was that when I was on the far, I guess that would be western portion, like the uphill portion of this wetland, as I was poking around and, with my auger. And as you probably know, we look to the soils, and the diagnostic horizon is about 20 inches. That's all we need to look at, 19.8 centimeters. 50 centimeters. So I noticed that someone else had poked a variety of holes. I saw 3 in particular, and there might have been more if I looked in that general area. So someone had been out there on the site before, and I verified because I could stick my auger in the hole and it will go down 20 inches and you could see the castings. So that's a little bit of a puzzle. So someone had looked at it. At any rate, I delineated the wetlands. I put 11 flags out there. The wetland starts, and I'll describe another interesting phenomenon there. The wetland starts, as I said, probably 25 feet or so away from the property boundary. And then it slopes down. So this is a there's a seasonal discharge here. So it's a seasonally saturated in that portion of the wetland. As it goes down the hill and reaches the seasonally flooded area, it's joined by another wetland on the property that's just to the north. And the two of them coalesce together into a probably many, many decades old drainage ditch, which hugs around a property. And then it opens up into another wetland. You can see that on the maps. The town maps show that as a wetland, and that goes under as that East Wharf Road, I think, and then right into the salt marsh. So that's kind of give you an idea of what's happening there. The other thing that was kind of interesting and that I'm still puzzled about, and I need to think about this because I'm sure you folks will be asking questions about it also. I found a black plastic corrugated pipe that eventually might go the entire length of this wetland. It starts somewhere. It possibly starts we were speculating in the field that it might be an underdrain for the old tennis court, or maybe even it connects to the subject property. Can't tell you. And that is it exposed in a few spots so you could actually see it. And there was one portion that was exposed and the pipe had kind of separated 2 sections. So you could look down through a narrow crevice and see that the water was actually flowing pretty good on the day that I was there, which was, I think, last Thursday. And then eventually that pipe gets to that ditch that I mentioned before, and then it goes out. So that's a question that I still have in my mind that I'd like to resolve, because I think it's important to know where the actual source of that is, because it might have relevance to what's going on the subject property, especially if it somehow connects to the subject property, which I do not know. So that's kind of a quick thumb sketch. I can give you more information. I could write that up at some point and do a proper soil investigation, wetland delineation report and submit it to the commission. So that's all I have for now. If you have any questions that I can answer, I'll be more than happy to do so.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I think probably we will have lots of questions, or many, or several, some questions for our next meeting in April, once the applicant has a chance to incorporate this new knowledge into their site plans. But this is helpful to have right now. So thank you, Mr. Logan. And I did
May I
also
ask-
note,
I'm
yes.
sorry to interrupt. It's hard to see. I wanted to request that the information that Mr. Logan has developed be provided to us. I guess they don't have to, but our goal here is to gather the information that's out there and address what concerns there may be, if they can be addressed. We've reached out to neighbors to try to gather this information, and what I seem to hear is that there are accusations that we're trying to gather information, which we are. But I would like that information so that we can address it at the next meeting. Frankly, I don't know why it wasn't provided earlier. We're all trying to do the same thing here and make sure we don't compromise or do something to a wetland that we're going to regret. Why don't we get the information?
Okay, well, I imagine that maybe, well, yes, I don't think the neighbors need to provide that information. Of course, it would be helpful to understand about exactly what's going on in that wetlands. But I think that's beyond the scope of our public hearing tonight. And maybe Dave Anderson, maybe you can help coordinate. I don't know.
Well, I guess I would say that the information that George just went over would be helpful for the Inland Wetlands Agency, and I would recommend that it be made part of the record, and then that would be shared with the applicant, and probably the sooner the better, so that everybody can be prepared adequately for the next meeting. So I think, everybody, in my opinion, has a vested interest to make sure we're all working from the same information, so that we're not wasting anybody's time and the public's time. So.
Yes, that'd be great. So yes, that if Mr. Logan can provide that information, I guess, to you, Dave, and you can get it out to us and the applicant, what you said tonight, and if you have more information, that would be great. Because we do want to, address all the concerns. Okay. Are there any other
yes,
people?
Attorney
Yes.
Ainsworth has his hand up again.
Okay.
Go ahead, Keith.
Well, I just wanted to address the sort of the question that, yes, they were attempting to get information, and my clients were developing that. And I thought it was a little odd that they went onto my client's property without their permission while we were doing our work. And we certainly intend to present the information that we've developed to the commission. That's why we've retained the experts we have, and we will be getting that information to you. The reason why it hasn't been provided earlier, it was just done in the last few days. So quite literally, we just got the information ourselves. And in fact, Mr. Logan has not put it into a report form. So the suggestion that we were withholding information, I think, is a little beyond the pale.
Okay. Thank you. Are there other people who would like to comment or ask questions?
No hands raised currently.
Okay. Well, if there are more questions, luckily, we will be doing this again the first Monday in April. So you can bring questions and we'll have more information about the second wetland. So kind of going once, going twice. Okay, so this hearing will be continued, so we don't need to close it.
Yeah, I just think you should make a motion to continue the hearing.
Okay,
I'll make a motion, we continue the hearing.
I'll second it.
all right. Okay, all in favor of continuing this? I am.
Aye.
Excellent. All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yep, you too, and we'll see you next month. Okay, so we are moving on to the other applications that we have tonight. So again, we are revisiting some from last month and actually from January. So next up, we have our subdivision referral 20-16 coastal site plan Longshore Lane Estates. Just to kind of recap, our role is to provide the Planning and Zoning Commission with a report or referral for the subdivision site plan that we received. Many of us on this call met with Mr. Gelderman and kind of hashed out what it means to do this report and what might be included in this report. And I'm just kind of refreshing everyone's memory. Since that time, the commission members have circulated our report that we can finish talking about tonight. Happy to screen share that as well. And I think, as I have heard from Dave Anderson, we have a couple of people who would like to speak. So let's see, why don't we have the people who want to speak can speak. And I think we've seen the reports that were submitted. So if we can, speak quickly or shortly or sort of briefly, that would be great. And then the agency members can kind of go through and talk about our referral, and we can hopefully wrap this up. So I know Mr. Trinkets. Tom Crosby.
Tom Crosby was the one. Can I stop you there real quick, just as a matter of probably process? We should probably offer the applicant an opportunity if they have anything to say to start out, and then jump to Tom and his team.
Okay. All right. So would the applicant like to say anything tonight?
No, I don't think so. We're just hoping to get this report over to P&Z and try to move this process.
All right, thanks,
Okay.
Larry. I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity. So Tom, go ahead. No problem.
Sure. Again, I'll keep my remarks brief. I just wanted to give Steve Trinkus, our engineer, and George Logan an opportunity just to hit the bullets on what their concerns are, so that I know you're going to issue a report. I know you have your own bullets, your own points that you want to raise. I just think it's important that we at least have the right to, or the opportunity to speak. And I appreciate your giving us that opportunity as intervener and just as a courtesy. So without further ado, I'd ask that Stephen Trinkus, if you're on, Steve, if you could lead off and just kind of hit a couple of your points, so that we want to make sure that you've heard these, so that when you do issue your report, as the IWA will do to the Planning and Zoning Commission, that that you've heard what we have as environmental concerns.
For the Commission's information, my name is Stephen Trinkus. I'm a licensed professional engineer in both Connecticut and Maryland, with an office in Southbury, Connecticut. I've been doing this close to 40 years. I'm also an expert in the field of low impact development, which the applicant is proposing several different type of lid systems to address stormwater management. You have my letter, which is very detailed, but the big picture items are the septic systems. Many of them are in relatively close proximity to tidal wetlands. In a septic system, there's various components of pollutants. There's phosphorus, which generally binds to the soil pretty close to the trench. You have viruses and bacteria, and you have nitrogen. We all know, and I think George would go further on this point, nitrogen discharges in tidal environments can wreak all kinds of havoc. In a septic system, the only way you can reduce nitrogen loads is by dilution. While the state health code for 4 or 5 bedroom houses does not require a dilution analysis, it is required under DEP, but it's also can be required from an environmental perspective to ensure that by the time the septic effluent reaches the wetland boundary, that it is meeting the 10 milligrams per liter, which is a drinking water standard, but that is also the criteria the DEP uses. It can only be the drainage area that is above, over, and downhill of the septic system, not the entire lot area. Based on a quick analysis of several of the lots, it does not meet the criteria. The nitrogen at the wetlands boundary would be greater than 10 milligrams per liter. From a stormwater perspective, the applicant proposes rain gardens for the roof drains. They simply say that it's going to hold 1 inch of rain. There's more to it than that. You have to have soil testing. You have to demonstrate that the water will actually infiltrate. Otherwise, you wind up with a hole in the ground that's a mosquito breeding pit because the water does not infiltrate. Permeable paver systems per the DEP 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual have to be located in Class A or B soils. And again, you need soil testing to know that you can provide the required vertical separation from the bottom of the system to seasonal high groundwater. Another issue with the pavers as proposed is they propose 7.5 inches of stone under the paver system for a driveway. With only 7.5 inches of stone, you drive a fire truck, a garbage truck, or moving truck over it, those paver stones are going to start moving around a lot. It is insufficient base to support the movement of vehicles. There's many of the septic systems, while there's test holes on the lots, they're not within the area of the primary system. So you honestly don't know if some of these systems would actually meet the health code. One of the other big issues that I looked at was where the driveway, I believe that comes into lot 6, where they're going to eliminate a 12-inch pipe and replace it with a bridge. Right now, the 12-inch pipe is a restriction between the freshwater wetlands and the tidal wetlands. When you remove that pipe and open up that channel area, you're going to allow for a greater movement of water in both directions, which is going to change the wetlands one way or the other. That's more of George's expertise, but clearly the pipe is a restriction to back and forth movement of water. Additionally, a bridge of this magnitude to support your typical fire truck, which is 70 to 75,000 pounds, the steel I-beams to span this are going to be on the order of 12 to 15 inches high. There is absolutely no detail for this bridge and whether it can actually be constructed as proposed. A 20-foot span may require a lot taller beams, and that means either the bridge gets elevated or you're going to have a much larger footing adjacent to the 2 wetland areas going forward. There's a question whether there's basement on these houses or not. There's no information on the plans. If you have basements, where the footing drain is going to go is a concern. Also, as virtually the entire site is within the 100-year floodplain from Long Island Sound, FEMA requires your livable space to be a minimum of 2 feet above the base flood elevation. In many cases, that criteria is not met for all of these homes. So homes are being proposed that are in violation of the FEMA standard. You should have the houses higher than that required elevation. And those are really the high points in my letter of January 13th. I've gone through each of the lots, with issues, and then, some specific comments on, details and other things. One of the other issues with septic is there's multiple systems shown on the detail sheet, but we don't know which systems are going on which lot. And, so you can't tell if these are all sized appropriately for the size of the homes. And that's really a quick summary of everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to mention, I looked through the record today, which is was a little tough for me, but I know Dave helped me out. I think the only thing I couldn't find was Mr. Trinkus's January 11th, 2021 initial report. I believe his February 8th analysis, which he just reviewed, is 20-16 Fogel technical review. But I couldn't find the January 11th, so I just want to make sure that that is part of the record. I'm sure that's something we could just take care of.
I can double check on that.
Thank you. Otherwise, Mr. Logan's report is also in the file already, or in the record. So if I could have Mr. Logan say a few words, I think we'll be.
Sure. Again, good evening, Commissioners. George Logan, Rema Ecological Services. I told you a few minutes ago what my qualifications are, and I'll be as brief as possible. I think the report that I submitted, which is dated February 8th, speaks for itself. It has a lot of hopefully good information that's not only good for this project, but for other projects that you folks might be entertaining and to approve in the future. One of the things that I'm very proud about is the scientific basis for protecting riparian and wetland buffer zones. This is a white paper that I put together with one of my colleagues. It's a living document. We've been reviewing the literature as it comes out and amending it as it goes. And interestingly enough, this document in one of its earlier versions was used by the then Office of Long Island Sound Programs as what they had for recommendations for looking at buffer zones in the coastal zone, whether it's inland wetlands or coastal tidal wetlands. So that was an interesting thing. They never asked me to do that, but they did it. So my report deals with a few issues that I'll just generally speak about. The first issue had to do with lack of current baseline data. There were some reports that were incorporated into your record from way back. They're about 14 or 15 years old. And then Mr. Davidson, one of my colleagues, went out November 18th and wrote a very short report or letter, basically saying that there had been no material substantial changes. However, I think that the information is sort of, it's old. You know, even the wetland delineations, usually you don't accept in most municipalities data that's more than 5 years old. Certainly the federal government, DEP, doesn't. So my basic thought there was it would have been very, very useful, especially since conditions can change for things we can't see, right? Wildlife utilization would be one of them. Floristic diversity will be another one, looking at it during the growing season, not during November. And the science has changed. We know a lot more about these very fragile systems, wetland systems, tidal, whether they're inland or not, whether they're tidal or not, because they're interconnected. And so I thought it would have been a good thing to get some good data. You probably all know that the tidal marshes and their interconnected inland wetlands are considered as critical habitats in Connecticut. And I gave you information regarding that. So anyhow, that was one issue, lack of baseline data or data that's too old and gaps in the data that already exist. I noted the fact that there was not a wildlife inventory done during May or June, which is critical for avians, particularly for ones that utilize these wetlands that are critically, they're on list of threatened, endangered, special concern. The other issue, second of the third that I will talk about is, and then again quickly, is one that Mr. Trinkhouse already brought out, and that's the adverse impacts from nutrient loading, particularly of nitrogen. I think he already spoke that if he did the dilution analysis, which is, as he said, the only thing that really attenuates nitrogen, which is highly mobile, especially in these kinds of soils, which are pretty porous. You don't, I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but in this case, it's a bad thing that you have these kinds of soils. The other thing is that the wetland system has a very small watershed, so has a limited flushing rate, which tends to concentrate on treated effluent from septic systems, especially the ones that don't do very well. So if Steve is saying that these septic systems don't even meet the health code, I can tell you certainly they do not meet the wetland code. And what do I mean by that? Well, typically in wetlands like this, and I'm guessing we don't have baseline data. If we had baseline data, we'd be able to make a better assessment. But typically, we don't talk about 10 milligrams per liter concentrations or less in wetlands. We usually talk about 1 milligram per liter or less. That's sort of the condition that you find in most situations in Connecticut from my experience, including in the tidal zone. So that's an issue that would have been, hopefully it would have been addressed if some of these things that Steve brought up would have been looked a little more carefully. And again, this wetland is sort of an embayment, so it doesn't have the flushing capacity, the dilution capacity that, say, the larger watershed would have with the larger input of water. The final thing that I talked about in the report, to some extent, and I included in that the nitrogen issue, is the fact that these buffer zones are not protective enough for these kinds of wetland systems. And I include a lot of information of why I think that's the case, including the animal life that lives there. And I know the Wetlands Commission typically don't regulate wildlife, but you regulate the physical impacts to the habitat that support the animals. So you kind of have to look at both to make a decision. And so if we'd had these kinds of wildlife inventories and botanical inventories up to date, or even at all, because as I said, there were gaps in the baseline, we've been able to come up with a recommendation. Okay, this is how much buffer the literature shows us will be sufficient to protect this particular wetland habitat. But unfortunately, we don't have that. And I included examples of some of the species there. It was interesting to me. I did look at this wetland a couple of times from neighboring properties, including Saturday after the sidewalk that the commission did. I went down Longshore Lane, and the previous day when I was there on Thursday, as I was crossing the bigger creek, it was interesting to me that a Marsh Hawk swooped over me. Now, you know, Marsh Hawks breed in Hammonasset Park, but they utilize this wetland for foraging. And, you know, when they're doing their foraging activities, they're also sensitive. So that's where also buffers are important, to leave sufficient buffers so that these systems can be used, if not for breeding, but for some of these listed species that might be there, but we don't know. Also for foraging for listed species that we know are there. And the previous record had mentioned at least another 2 or 3. So again, my conclusion is that you don't have enough baseline data that are up to date. You have an issue with nutrient loading, particularly from nitrogen in these inland and tidal wetlands. And then you have buffers that, in my opinion, are not sufficiently wide to protect the functions and values of the resources. And that's all my summary for now. I appreciate taking time to listen to me.
Thank you. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for the information. And I think we've seen most of that. So for our commission members, and Dave, I don't know, should I share my screen, or do you want to share?
I recommend you pull it up so everybody can see.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment before we proceed. I think both of these gentlemen have made very, very good points. But I think they should go to the planning and zoning and make the same points at their public hearing. We have, I take it back, you have made an excellent presentation here. It is one of the more comprehensive referrals that I've ever seen, quite frankly. And we have come up with much of the same conclusions without the details. So, I think we can go forward and make a recommendation, realizing that there is no wetlands application, so we cannot take those information and do anything about it right at this point. I think we should move forward with it.
Right, and that is something that I'm just going to share my screen.
The thing you put together. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So can people? I wonder if I can make this full screen. Maybe.
If anything, it could be stronger, but I think it's sufficient.
Okay.
It's good. Also.
All right. So so just briefly, we have the agency members, we've all seen this, we've gone through this. I've incorporated, and Lee was great also in helping pull this together. So yes, it is actually, in my experience in the wetlands, one of the more comprehensive reports we've had, in part because I think it's a complex property, and in part because, we, as we note, there just isn't a lot of information. It isn't a wetland application. So just briefly for everyone else, we have highlighted, we've got, 6 points. So we've highlighted that this is a new application. We've highlighted the delineation issue that, the wetlands really haven't been delineated in many years, and we've had a lot of storms and there's been a lot of change. These are dynamic landscapes. We also highlighted the issue with the previous survey taking place not during the growing season, and also the fact that this property is in the Natural Diversity Database. So we should actually see current surveys during the growing season where we might expect to see species of concern. Lot 6 comes up a lot. This is the wetland. This is where, if something were to be built on this lot, the wetland crossing, as we say, is problematical and challenging. There's high water table depths that exist. And we also note the open space is distributed piecemeal, and it's an easement, it's not open space. I think what I took away from our commission's conversation via email and in previous meetings is that we really don't have it in the wetlands application before us. And we are highlighting for the planning and zoning in this referral what we can identify based on, pretty basic information. We're just identifying some of the issues that a potential subdivision would have. And in this case, it is more detailed than in the past. But I think, everyone was also in agreement that, there's a lot of issues here and we would like more information. If this, goes any further, clearly we would have to see most of these lots, if not all, back before us. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you guys. But that is our referral. And so I think basically, unless anybody has any other changes, but I think we, ended this email chain as an agreement on this final draft that we can forward this on to planning and zoning, or if any of the agency members have any more comments they'd like to add.
I think it should go with it as you've written it, and I think that last sentence should be retained in the.
Oh, okay. I actually took that out.
Oh no.
That's
a copy I have.
Okay. Well, I think in our email chain, a lot of people wanted that out, and as I went through the minutes from our special meeting with Mr. Gelderman and the other attorneys, I think I read through those again.
I would suggest that we do not have jurisdiction. You're absolutely right, but we still have an opinion. And that's all they're asking for. But if everybody feels that it's better the other way, that's fine. I will vote to approve it as amended or not.
Okay. Yes. So I did take out that last, and I'm not going to remember the phrasing, but
yeah, I'm going to read it again.
Yeah, but essentially it was having an opinion about this instead of just suggesting and highlighting the issues. I think we might be better off not including that. But I think what I can say is that our agency is very concerned about this application and very concerned about the impacts, the potential impacts on the wetlands that at least from what we have in front of us, that we can identify.
I think that's absolutely right. Yep.
So we're minus that last sentence. I don't think in the past that we normally vote on these referrals. We generally either have a couple sentences or we just note in our minutes that we've referred it. I think
In the past, very casual, that's right.
yeah, and so I think if you all, and I will make sure I'll send out the draft, the last, the final to you all after this meeting. But I think if you're all in agreement, then we can send. Oh wait, Dave's going. No,
we do have. Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm actually going to ask Pete if he has an opinion on it. If it's better to take a vote to forward it, or.
I think it is better to take a vote.
Okay.
So it's a commission report that everybody has agreed or not, but there's a vote and it gets sent over as an item that the commission reviewed and approved.
Well, Pete, do you think we're overstepping our ground?
No. I read it. It's an appropriate report. I think it's fine. And I think the only reason for voting on it is to establish that it is the commission's report.
Right.
The agency's report, I should say.
I'll make, well, why don't you send it out again?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the latest report as read for Longshore Lane, for the planning and zoning, our referral letter, that we should approve it and we can send it.
I second.
I'll third it.
All right. Well, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
If I can, Kia, I just want George Logan to know he must be old school. Marsh Hawks are now called Northern Harriers.
Actually, they were called Northern Harriers before they were called Marsh Hawks, but I'll leave it at that.
I like Marsh Hawk, by the way.
I do too.
As a point of order, can I just ask what the sentence was that you've not approved or that was discussed? Otherwise, we have a record that doesn't say what that was. We just talked about something that didn't happen.
Well, I don't think we necessarily need that, Tom. It's not part of the report.
It's not going to be.
There's a lot of things that aren't part of the report. That's what it is not really relevant.
All right. So a discussion occurred tonight on a sentence that's been omitted, and we don't know what that sentence is.
There were discussions about a lot of things that aren't in that report. What's in the report is what was referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I understand. Tonight is a hearing where we're the intervener and we're just asking for.
Well, it's not a hearing. It's not a hearing.
Oh, so this isn't a hearing?
No, it's not a public hearing.
It's not a public hearing.
As an intervener, we have a right to speak and to, I guess, just for transparency. So that's why I asked for someone to tell me what the sentence was.
You're not an intervener in this action. This is a referral from the Wetland Agency to the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is not any action that the Wetland Agency is taking on behalf of the application.
This isn't a coastal site plan review.
No, you know that. It's not. It's a referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission, period.
And you say in the referral, okay, I understand. But in the referral, we've intervened, and we've intervened to raise our environmental issues, to contribute information to your report, which I think you've listened to. I'm not disputing that, but I'm just asking that the sentence that was on the record tonight be read. But if you're not going to read it, you're not going to read it.
I don't actually have it anymore. I'd have to look through.
And just to be clear, you didn't intervene in this referral. You intervened in the application to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Which then was referred here.
Actually, but this is not part of, this is a referral, a statutory referral. If you were intervening in this action, you'd have to establish what the facts that you need to establish to be an intervener in this. This is simply a referral. It's not a public hearing. It was a courtesy that the commission allowed members of the public to even speak, or parties. There aren't, even parties don't have a right to speak in this. It's simply a referral.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I disagree. We've intervened. I think that gives us standing to speak. I think you gave us the right to speak. Maybe you're now telling me that you did that as a courtesy as opposed to recognizing our intervener status. Either way, I just thought it'd be a good idea to read the sentence that you had talked about that nobody knows what you're talking about that was listening.
Well, the chairman doesn't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I do know what it is, but I have to find it because I deleted
Well, it's
it.
not necessary to do that. You have a report that you're submitting.
Dave Newton.
And you voted on it, you approved it.
Dave Newton was about to read it.
I am not going to read it.
Apparently not.
We have made a motion and passed it.
All right, I'm going to play referee. We've got a couple more agenda items. I appreciate everybody's commentary. I think it's time to move on. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, let my objection be. Thank you.
Okay, duly noted. Okay, so we will forward that on. And we are going to move to our next application, or our first application of the evening, which is application 21-01 645 Green Hill Road.
Thank you.
And thank you. So I just note here that there was an email to Mr. Craig earlier in the last month, about the amount of fill.
Yep.
And I didn't get an update. Is that updated?
So I actually was speaking with John DeLaura and Alex Klein, the customer, and we were able to scale down the scope of work. So basically we wouldn't be going over 100 yards of soil and fill on the whole project. I know at first we were creating a 10-foot area of flat lawn off the pool apron and then banking that down. And now using around 98 yards total, we would just be banking the soil directly right off the pool apron out 15 feet. And the biggest grade, or the biggest pitch that we would have there would be a 15-degree grade coming off of the pool. So everything kind of got scaled down now. So we're just no longer going with, I think it was around 155 yards total. We were able to rescale down that size of the project. And John mentioned to me that we didn't have to fill out the next form if we were going under that total amount of cubic yards.
Okay. And just, if you can give us just a couple, you've just kind of done it, but just to refresh everyone's memory, we received this last month. So if you can just do, just like, I don't know, 2 or 3 sentences-ish on exactly what you're doing. Thank you for taking care of the fill detail.
No problem. Yeah, so what we're doing is Alex had a pool put in, and he's looking for Madison Earth Care to regrade the soil or lawn space around that pool area and then hydro seed it. So within that, we rechanged the scope by bringing in a lot more soil to create a little more of a flat section of land or lawn right off the pool apron to currently now just sloping the lawn directly off. We're actually reducing the pitch from what it was because there's a pretty deep drop in certain areas, and expanding that grade and pitch within a 15-foot span off of the pool apron. So we would be bringing in all clean fill and then 2 inches of topsoil to then hydro seed off of that to basically finish off the project for Alex.
When are you going to do this project?
Whenever we get the go ahead, we can start it at any time now at this point. We're kind of waiting to do the right steps and make sure everything's approved because it is near the wetland.
Yeah. I would like to make a suggestion. You're putting in Winterberry along the right close to the wetlands boundary.
Yep.
What I would like to suggest is that you also put in hay bales below that, because when you put it in, you're gonna hydroseal it, but if we get a rainstorm, that hydroseal is gonna end up in the wetlands. So if you could put hay bales along right behind the Winterberry, in my opinion, it would help a lot. Hay bales or silt fence or both.
Okay.
Because you're putting fill in there, you're hydrosealing, which is nothing more than newspaper and seeds. And if we get a good storm, it's going to wash down because it's a fairly steep grade.
Does it help if I'm going to be putting a wood fence that's going to go from the ground up that could help stop some of the water planing off?
Where is that going to go, Alex?
On the right on the fringe near that Winterberry.
That would, if it goes to the ground, that would be a big help.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my intention, is to have it go to the ground and be a closed fence from ground to wood.
I think that would be a big help.
Okay. Does that change the amount of fill that I can put in if I'm doing that?
I'd have to ask your.
Okay. I see John shaking his head, so I won't mess around with that.
I'm just looking. You got to understand, there's a grade between your pool and the wetlands, and we're going to hydroseed it. I know what hydroseeding is, and with the grading, I just don't want it to wash down, and the Winterberry is not going to make a good barrier initially on a big storm. That's all.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Hey, Dave, would there be something other than Winterberry you would recommend that would have a better root
I'm
system?
not an arborist. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just trying to put a barrier across there to allow the grass to root and create a, not an impervious surface, but a stable surface.
Sure.
Yeah, as soon as we do that, the fencing will go along with the project. I just can't do the fencing until they do the fill. So, so that'll be, if that works, I'll do that instead of the hay bale. If you guys approve of that.
I will add too, on the bank, we will put like a geotextile fabric just to help kind of retain that hydro seeding, or whether it's even a straw blanket, just to allow that to get established.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. That I said that's my opinion.
Oh, that's great. Are there any other comments on this application from the agency members? No? All right, so this is our chance to make a decision. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve the application. I don't have the number right at hand.
21-1.
21-01.
With the condition that there be stabilization be put along where the Winterberry Row is.
Okay. Seconds.
I'll second.
All right. So any comments? I think I would just note that, this application is being approved with the reduced amount of fill, just to have that in there. Plus Dave's comment on the Winterberry, the stabilization, right? All right. Any other comments for this?
So with the stabilization and everything, if this were to be approved today, how soon would the work be able to start to take place? We have a waiting period until we can start that?
Yeah, 15 days.
15 days, okay.
Yeah, Dave will put this on the website as a notice, of the decision, and then there'll be 15 days after that if there's an appeal.
Okay.
So, but you should be fine. I can't imagine we get an appeal, but there's that waiting period, that's all.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
All right. All right. All in favor of
Aye.
our
Aye.
yes.
Aye.
Okay, great. So you're good to go in 15 days.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time tonight.
Great. Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Have a great night.
Thanks. Good job.
All right, we're going to move on. 20-02, 114 and 110 Bradley Road.
I'll try to make it really brief tonight. I know you guys had a long night already. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Michael Harkin. I'm a professional engineer and principal of Harkin Engineering, located at 78 Wolf Hollow Lane in the town of Killingworth, Connecticut. Again, here tonight on behalf of my client, the applicant, Davis Realty, Mr. Jerry Davis, for his project entitled The Bradley, which will be located at 110 and 114 Bradley Road. Just so you know, when this project happens, both parcels will be combined. The two parcels will be combined into one, and then we'll have a definitive address, probably 114 Bradley Road at that point. So with that being said, I'll go over a brief overview of what I did last month. We just received it last month. The proposed project, I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see the site plan?
Yeah.
Cool. There you go.
There we go. Okay, so the proposed project is for a residential apartment building, which you can see here. Off to the west side of the parcel is the hearth. And then we have the dry cleaners off to the east side. Bradley Road is up to the north. So again, we have a large grass area in the front of the property. Right next to the hearth, we have an entry driveway with some parking, and then we have the parking lot located in the rear of the property. We have an inland wetlands in the corner of the property, which is flagged by Mr. Richard Snarsky. We have a 100-foot upland review area, which you can see here. We've taken great lengths to keep all septic systems out of that 100-foot upland review area, as well as the building. So just a small section of the parking lot is located there. And then directly adjacent to the wetlands, we have a large detention basin, which you can see where my cursor is. If I scroll down more, you can see the site development plan, which again shows septic system located in the front, one in the driveway, and two of the rear parking lot. Again, the 100-foot upland review area is where my cursor is. All the utilities are coming off the street. There's one section of utilities that are coming off the west that will run along the west side of the building and then tie back in over here. And then we have all the drainage ultimately gets collected through a set of catch basins located throughout the project site. And then it gets piped into that proposed detention basin. The detention basin then has an outlet that spills over into that wetlands. So we're not really changing any drainage patterns on the site. All the water is getting into this wetlands. And I'll just scroll down real quick again. So we have a full erosion control plan, a full sheet dedicated to erosion controls, where we have the stockpile area shown throughout the subject site, as well as silt fencing, as well as staked hay bales adjacent to the wetlands and silt fencing. And then we have a call out for erosion control blankets and the calculated size for the erosion control blankets. We have a large scale construction entrance in the front of the property. And then every catch basin after install will have hay bales placed around it. All the catch basins will be equipped with hoods to catch any sediment or debris after the project is built. And on the last page, we have all the DEP requirements for wetlands, such as dust control during the project site. We will have a post-development monitoring program for that detention basin. So again, that's the project in a nutshell, as quick as I can go through it. We went into it in pretty much in detail at the last meeting. There was one question. I took a series of questions at the last meeting. I answered them all. There was one that I couldn't answer. I think Tom had asked for is the distance from our property to Tuxas Pond. And that distance is 540 feet. from the edge of our property to the pond. So I think that's it with my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that anybody else has or has thought up over the last month.
Mike, I have one question.
Sure.
You have a septic system plan. Was that approved by the health officer?
Right now, that is getting approved. It's in the midst of getting approved by her. I had a sit-down meeting last week for 2 hours with her, just going over everything. She required some additional information, which was the physical layout of each floor plan.
This is at DEP?
This is not DEP. No, we're less than 7,500 gallons.
But you have more than 30 bedrooms.
Right. So each bedroom is broken down 150 gallons per bedroom. So if you do the 48 times 150, we're less than 7,500. So the septic break off is 0 to 2,000 is local. 2,000 to 7,500 is state of Connecticut, Mr. Bob Scully's department, and anything over 7,500 is DEP, which is Mr. Michael Hart's division.
And Mike, that changed what, a few years ago?
Yeah, it was implemented about 2 years ago.
Oh, it did. Okay. All right.
Yes, that is a relatively recent change, Dave. It used to be 5,000 gallons, which is like 33 bedrooms.
Well, it used to be 33 bedrooms on a certain length.
Yep.
Yes,
You're
sir.
right.
You're 100% correct. Exactly. And 2 years ago, they changed it to that 7,500 mark.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. I retract my comments.
All right. Are there other questions from agency members? Anybody else? So Mike, on the, and I know I keep asking about this wetland there. You've got your treatment, water treatment there, right?
Yes.
Where you have your cursor. And I don't remember if we talked about how much water that retains.
That contain up to the 100-year storm event if we wanted to. Okay.
And then it drains off to the wetland.
So what we've done here is we put the detention basin in. So we're collecting all the site water to mitigate any additional flows on any adjacent properties. So we have our water quality volume inside the detention basin too. We also have 1 foot of freeboard. So even if we have a large scale storm event, it still stays within the confines of the detention basin. What controls and meters is that physical outlet structure. Okay. And we did in the engineering world, we did a TR55 analysis, which basically makes sure that at each storm interval, there's a certain amount of inches of runoff that's dictated, rainwater. We put that in there and we're able to design the outlet structure. So let's just say that a newspaper or something clogs up all the holes in that outlet structure. The top is actually a double catch basin grate, so it spills inside the catch basin and it can't spill over the sides. If there's a catastrophic failure where somebody wraps it with plastic, let's say, this stone encasement here is a riprap channel where it will basically spill over into that wetlands.
Okay. All right. And for your septic, we talked about nitrogen a lot tonight. And do you, and I don't know the regulations for that as well. Is that something that you're?
So I love to talk about this because everybody asks about it. Our primary design is septic systems throughout the state. We do a ton. We do about 5 a week out of our office. So when you have a system that is not a DEP system, you do not have to worry technically about the amount of nitrogen leaving the site because the state of Connecticut Health Department does not look at that. A great example is if you drop a septic system, which we do quite often, 15 feet from the shoreline, the levels of nitrogen far exceed that 10 milligrams per liter going into Long Island Sound. In this instance, we're less than the 7,500 gallons. But in our design, what we've done is to offset nitrogen levels, we do two things. You can add a blower system, what they call a soil air system, which we've added to all these septic systems. That further reduces the nitrogen levels coming out of the septic systems. So we have soil air on all of these. And what we've done is we have a lot of grass green areas. So if you notice how you dilute nitrogen is with water. So with all that grass water and infiltration, the nitrogen is diluted throughout the project site.
Well, I could talk about septic systems all night too. I think they're super, super interesting with respect to wetlands, but we'll just have to stop.
The first 10 feet of a wetlands actually cleans the nitrogen out better than anything.
Yeah, no, there's all kinds of things we could talk about, but we'll have to just save that for another time. Does anybody else have questions?
Nope.
No. All right. So again, this is our second time seeing this. So I will entertain a motion for how we want to deal with this application.
I'll make a motion. I don't have the number though.
It's 21-02.
I make a motion, we approve application 2102. As submitted.
I'll second it.
All right, Lee seconded it. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you very much. And anytime you want to talk about septic systems, feel free. I'm kind of number one in the number two business these days.
Okay.
All right, guys, have a great night. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting there, guys. Now we have the next three applications are for receipt only tonight. So this is going to be our first go around. Our first one is 21-04, 68 Sterling Park Drive.
Yeah, Kayla, I can speak to this a little bit. Rich Gentile, the owner of this property, is not able to attend the meeting this evening. So if there's any questions, I'm familiar with this. It's not an egregious wetlands project. It's a small addition to the garage. You know, I can fill you in a little bit if you're interested, or we can hear it again next month. Whatever your pleasure.
How close, Dave, John, is this to a wetland area?
75 feet.
Could we make it administrative?
Yes.
Or is there more activity around it?
No, there's really nothing. That's a great question, and I'm comfortable with section 13, but I wanted the agency to just take a look at it, and unfortunately, Rich is not here. I don't know if I don't think we can bring this up to view, but when I went through it, it's a 9x18 small shed, basically attached to the garage. Its closest point to the closest flag is 75 feet. There's no foundation. It's a slab on grade. No disturbance of anything that's there at this point. There's no footing drains. E&S will be prior to the start, maintained during, and of course, all disturbed areas would be stabilized as soon as possible at completion.
Just for information, about 8 or 9 years ago, when they built a house on top of that ridge, that was quite a controversy because of the road coming in. It was right next to that pond.
Exactly.
But, so I remember that application, but I don't see any problem with making it either a section 13 or whatever.
I think you did a great job with you know, the you know, replanting that whole along that whole drive. Yeah, did a great job.
Okay, well, I don't know. Are people comfortable having this as a section 13?
I am.
I am.
Yes.
All right,
I'll make a motion that application 20-21-04.
21.
Section 21 under John's purview.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
We have
all in
confidence
favor?
in you, John.
So what's the
All right.
site plan next month?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay, so now we have, so that'll be a section 13. Now we have application 21-05, 141 Opening Hill Road. Do we have someone?
You do. Good evening. I was sleeping. I heard you got the application, so I woke back up. No, I'm joking. Just for the record, I'm Mike Ott, a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summerhill Civil Engineers in Madison. And I'm representing Herb and Melody Escobar, which I think, yes, they are. There they are. They are attending the meeting also. And I believe they would like to speak if it's okay. I know we know this is just for receipt this evening. I'll give you a 2-minute overview if I could. I'm going to share my screen. So this is 141 Opening Hill Road. This is Herb and Melody's property. The blue line is the wetland boundary. The open space parcel that was part of the subdivision that created this lot is to the right of the lot and to the rear of the lot, and it's owned.
I don't have a drawing.
Not showing yet. Yeah.
Oh, you can't see it?
No.
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry. Let me stop sharing. Let me try that one more time. I apologize. Oh.
Your computer's asleep.
Yeah.
How about that?
Nope.
Oh,
No.
Huh, it worked earlier. Oh, it says screen sharing paused, whatever that means.
it's not working.
I guess not, Dave. All right. Well, I apologize. It worked in the first application. Let me try it one more time. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm getting a screen sharing is paused message, which I've never seen before.
Yeah, Mike, I'm looking. I didn't do anything, so I don't know what's going on.
Must be me. I apologize, guys. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not quite sure how to get out of that, but I will explain.
No, if I'm being heard.
Open space parcel to the right and to the rear of the lot, inland wetland wraps the house on the right side and the rear side. The lot was filled when the home was constructed, so there's an elevation difference on the side of the house where Mr. and Mrs. Escobar would like to put the swimming pool of about 7 feet. It's really the only place to put the pool. The pool has to respect the building setback line. The building setback distance is 20 feet in this particular zone. So, and because of the grade differential, a retaining wall will be required. So there's going to be a retaining wall approximately 6 feet in height. And it will be, that wall has to respect the building setback line. I wish I could show you the plan, but the wetland crosses the property boundary just a hair, so that the retaining wall at its closest point will be 20 feet from the wetland boundary. The wetland boundary goes away from the pool, except at that one closest point of 20 feet. So I apologize again that I can't share my screen for some reason, but that's the application in a nutshell. So it's to construct a swimming pool, an in-ground swimming pool, a small pool, 16 by 32, and its associated retaining wall and patio at its closest point, 20 feet from the inland wetland boundary.
How far, Mike? I'm sorry, I missed that.
20, Dave.
20 feet, thank you.
20 at its closest point, and I will continue to try to find out while we're talking what's going on here, but that's the application summary. I know you can only receive it tonight, and we can discuss it, of course, in more detail at the next meeting. I think Mr. and Mrs. Escobar would like to address the agency, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I know it's a long evening. I've been sitting listening to everything, so I can only imagine what you're feeling. I just wanted to speak on behalf of our 8-year-old son. The primary purpose of putting in the pool is for our son who has special needs. It will allow him to do upper body strength and muscular strength building, and will enable him to be able to meet those needs. He does attend elementary school in Madison and receive special education services there. We're new to the area, and think it's you know, a blessing to be here. And simply put, the only reason we're doing this is for him. It has been something that has helped him since he was 3. He's 8, and it would allow us to have therapists come and work with him. You know, he didn't walk till he was 2, so swimming has been phenomenal in terms of affecting both his mental processing and his physical abilities. So I don't know how all that plays into your data points that you're collecting this evening. I just wanted to thank you for welcoming the family to Madison and for your consideration. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you for your comments.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I saw that. I don't know how I did that, but so the blue line is the wetland boundary. This point is the closest point, which will be 20 feet from the edge of the retaining wall. And let me zoom back out a bit again. So Opening Hill Road at the top of the sheet, the open space parcel wraps around. This is Madison Land Conservation Trust. This is a single family home on the west side. The blue line is the inland wetland boundary. You can see it comes around the back. We only did a partial topographic survey. If you were to come out to this site, you would see that all along the length of the house, the backyard is raised up very high and drops down to the inland wetland. This is actually the only place to get a pool and to be able to get it furthest away from the wetland that we can. So it's this short distance right here at this point. That's the 20-foot distance that I was talking about.
What's the grade there, Mike?
It's about a 6 or 7 foot difference, Dave.
Over
about 20 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. But the building setback line, which I'm tracing, is the line that we have to respect, of course, with the retaining wall and the or actually the retaining wall, not the patio, but the retaining wall.
Okay.
Where's the retaining wall, Mike? I guess I missed that part of the presentation.
I'm sorry. It'll be I'll trace it here. It'll be right along the building setback line. Right here.
And what's there now? Is it is it yard now or is it woods? Or
It's a grass slope down to the edge of a wooded area just outside of the wetland boundary. So this is the lawn, a sloping lawn, 6 or 7 feet elevation difference. Similarly in the backyard, it's a sloping lawn.
How high would the from lowest grade to top of the retaining wall, how tall is it?
6 feet.
Okay, nothing that the town engineer should look at?
Actually, the town engineer wouldn't look at it. The building official would.
Oh,
It'll need a building permit.
Okay.
As you know, Joe, right? No.
I slipped for a second.
You slip. Yeah, it will definitely require a building permit.
And, there's excavation. And I looked through at least the materials I got didn't have that site plan. So
no,
I don't know if anybody else.
You did not, and I apologize.
Okay.
We did, John Delora knows this. We waited for the snow to melt a bit. We actually did the survey Friday morning.
Okay. I was
This
like,
Friday
wow,
morning.
I just can't totally find that. Okay.
I
So
apologize. I should have said that when we started.
That's, yeah, 'cause I went through all my files. I was like, I don't even have it. Okay, good. I don't have it.
I don't think any of the new apps had submitted plans.
Oh, no, Liberty, our last one does, has one.
Okay.
So there's going to be excavation, presumably, right?
For the retaining wall foundation, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then all the proper soil and erosion control measures.
Yeah, and I can go through it in much more detail.
Okay.
Yeah, at the next
Okay.
one, but yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
There'll have to be a sediment control barrier, and if they have to dewater, it'll have to be pumped up on the lawn, so
Okay.
it'll drain back after infiltrating into the grass, and all the standard controls that you would put in place for work that close to an inland wetland.
Okay.
All right, this is only a receipt, so
This is only receipt, yeah.
So I'll make a motion, we receive it, scheduled for the next meeting.
Second.
All right. Comments, questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, received.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so our last application, 21-07, 81 Liberty Street.
Good evening. I've been here since the beginning. My name is John Cunningham, owner of TEC Landscape Design Incorporated. I'm here for Brian Jeremiah, who's purchasing the property at 81 Liberty Street. And I know it's just receipt. I'm just guessing. I think the board is going to probably want to take a walk through the back area. We're proposing to put in a more like a half basketball court and a pool in the back area. The main really wetland piece that we're asking for is there is a small pocket, it's about 300 square feet, where the elevation is about 4 feet lower than all the existing grass back there. It is just full of invasives. We're making a proposal to remove that area, 330 square feet. And we're actually engaged Rich Shinarski to actually install a new wetland area that's attached to the rest of the wetlands on the site. And we're adding approximately 1,500 square feet of wetlands. And on my plan, I have all Rich's notes, plant material, how he's going to do all that.
Okay.
One last thing, we also in our file we presented the existing A2 survey that shows all the existing elevations on the property. The rear lawn right now, let's say, is at elevation 35. We're not changing that. The pool would be approximately about 45 feet from the new wetland line, and the sport court would be around 25 feet from the wetland.
Okay.
And if you like, Claire, I can share my screen of my plan just to quickly go through it, or we can wait till next week, whatever you'd like.
Well, I think you could share because it does sound, if you're creating a wetland, and we may want a site walk, but if you can share, then maybe it'll help us.
Okay.
Help
You
us
don't have to,
orientation.
pardon?
Okay.
Give us orientation, because I'm not quite sure what it looks like.
Okay, can everyone see that now?
Yes.
Okay. I know it's getting late. I'll be as quick as I can. Here's the existing residence. The upper garage area is at elevation 42. The residence it's it runs on Boston Post Road. It also has a driveway that empties out onto Liberty Street. So it has two different entrances. Right now, the rear of the property is just all lawn. Okay. The wetland area, as you can see in my plan, that was flagged by, I believe, Rich Sinarski probably 10 years ago. Okay. We're leaving that as is. We did make a note that we'd like to remove any of the invasive material in there. Okay. The little area that I talked about is this area where my cursor is right now. Okay. It is full of Japanese knotweed and wineberry. There's nothing in there that is of any value to any wetland. We'd like to fill that back in so it's back up to elevation 34, which the rest of the rear yard is. That being said, this little slashed line would be a new planting bed that would act as a filter from the lawn area to our new wetland area, where I haven't colored in the little triangles yet. This is the new area that Rich would be working on. The elevation is correct. It's at elevation 25, where the rest of the wetland area is at elevation 26 to 27. So it works in well with the elevation for the existing wetland. Our pool is a gunite pool. Our decking around the pool is going to be all permeable on a 12-inch crushed stone base. Our new court is going to be asphalt. We have a permeable area of wash stone around the court where water would run into that wash stone area from the court itself. And the court itself is at elevation 35. We have it a little bit higher than the lawn area. So this is actually an existing cutout of the property, maybe when the property was first done, but the court just about fits into that existing elevation, which is shown on the existing A2 survey.
John, I assume that's a little stream running south out of there?
Just turn it off.
The bottom.
Yeah.
At the bottom, there's no.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Dave. There's no stream on the area, just the existing wetlands.
Well, what's that squiggly line that comes down there?
Under the pool.
Tree line, I think.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's just it just says that's just the existing branch structure of the existing trees, Dave.
Oh, okay. I can't read this, what it says, so thank you. Okay.
Are there any questions on the?
So it looks like everything's within the 100-foot review area. Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yes, it is.
It is. Yeah. John, I assume the application is complete?
Yes, it is. I've kind of put if you read through this, Dave, if you guys have all these plans, all of Rich Sinarski's notes are on my plan and how he's going to form the new wetland.
Yeah.
The plant list is in the upper corner. We have both wetland shrubs, wetland herbaceous plant material and buffer plants also for the area that's going to run along the wetlands.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, so that's a lot of activity within the regulated activity area. I guess I would be comfortable with the site walk given that much activity plus filling and adding wetlands.
I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, so I think maybe John, Delora, you can help us schedule something.
Yeah, we'll put something together and schedule that, give you I guess the best days, probably a Saturday. Does that work best, or Friday afternoons or evenings? We're getting more light now, so.
We're getting more light. Yeah, well, I don't know, Saturdays.
Okay, why don't I just send you guys an email? I'll just throw some thoughts out there. We'll just start with that. We've got almost 5 weeks, for the next meeting, so we've got time.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion. We accept the application on Liberty Street and schedule it for next meeting and schedule a site walk, which is John's responsibility.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll second it.
All right. Any more discussion? No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, I guess we'll see you on the sidewalk.
Yes. Okay. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Dave Newton. You've been our making a motion person. It's great. Moving us along. No, it's good. That's good. All right. So back to our agenda. We are through our applications. We have no section 13 approvals. Hopefully you guys looked at the minutes. We had our special meeting minutes from February 16th, as well as our regular meeting minutes from February 8th. I will start with, I do have a comment on the February 16th. I just had a question, or a comment. It says, this is, let's see, there are 4 pages. This is the bottom of the 3rd page, right before the bold. It says, concerns should be highlighted as challenges, and concerns could be specific, according to Chairman Freidenberg, who opposed the idea of simply writing a general report. But I wasn't sure what I was opposing. I don't know if I opposed, I don't think I was opposed to a general report. I don't, because but I'm wondering if I missed something or if anybody remembered.
I don't know.
It's like, oh no, what did I oppose? But I don't remember. So, I mean.
What part of the meeting was that? I don't have them in front of me.
This is when we met with the lawyers.
Ah.
Do you want me to explain that?
Oh, yes, if you can, that'd be great. Because I was confused.
Somebody, I don't know who had said it. One of the commissioners said something about, well, let's just write a general report and not be really specific. And use, I don't think that we should just write a general report. So I translated that to oppose the idea of writing a report. So you could, you could amend it to like take it out or change the wording somehow.
Well, I remember
change
that.
The wording, but we can just point to Marlene's comment about what it referred to.
Well,
no, I remember that. It was Tom Paul had said, somebody had said, let's just refer this without a lot of the detail. And I said, no, I think we should have the detail instead of a generalized report.
we can amend the minutes to say that, what you just said, which I did not write down.
I think they're okay. I mean, if you read the first part of that sentence, I think that's basically what the whole sentence
Okay,
says.
okay. I think I got hung up on, I was opposed. I was like, oh no.
Well, you could take those words, you could take those, amend it to take it out. You really could.
Yeah, that's okay.
Like there
I understand the context, and it's fine.
I think it's fine.
Yeah, that's good. I just couldn't remember, and I do remember that conversation, so that's fine. That was my only comment. I went through both sets of minutes. Did anybody else have any comments? No, nothing else they want to go, oh no. Okay. Can we just do both? Can we just approve both sets of minutes at the same time?
So I'll make the motion before Dave does that. We approve the meeting minutes of February 8th and February 16th, 2021, as written and discussed.
All right, Joe, I'll second
it. Nice.
All right. All right, I don't think we have any more comments. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, going back to the agenda, remarks. So I don't have any prepared remarks, but thank you everyone for all the time and energy. I know we had we had a lot of applications, and I know getting the Longshore referral has taken extra time and energy, and I'm sure we will continue to see more of that. But thank you for everyone's help with that.
Thank you.
And I don't have any others. I have a question. Are we seeing an uptick in it seems like we're seeing an uptick in applications. Is that coming?
Yeah.
That's yes. Okay. We got had a couple easy years.
There's not much land left. It's
Okay.
all ledge and wetlands.
All right. Yeah. No. Okay.
Well, the first meeting I went to, this is in 1995, we went past midnight. And that,
Yeah.
and we used to have much longer agendas.
Well, I'm gonna try not to do that. That's way past my bedtime. So, John, you're next. I'm done. Those were my comments. Do you have any comments?
No. Please,
All right.
no, thank you.
No, thank you. Does anybody want to leap on top of our last motion for the evening?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it. Good night, all.
All in favor? Thank you.
Bye.